Hello, and welcome back to the Business First Creatives podcast. My guest today is my second returning guest. It is Maddie Peschong. She is amazing. She is awesome. And by the time this episode airs, it will have been almost 6 months between her episodes and a full 30 episodes. So we are going to talk about how much growth she's had in the last 6 months, but I am going to let her introduce herself, tell you where she is and what she does. Good morning, Maddie.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited.
Me too. I'm pumped to be back. I love chatting with you. So my name is Maddie, as Colie said. I'm a brand photographer and coach in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I'm also a wife, a mom of 3. I've been a photographer for about 10 years and specifically been a brand photographer for about 4.
Okay. So Maddie is probably the only person that could ever get me to go to South Dakota, just FYI. I have no interest in either of the Dakotas, but I tell you what, like visiting Maddie is probably high on my list. So Maddie, last time you were on the episode, it was for a client case study episode, and I had just done your Dubsado VIP day. And one of the reasons that I recorded your episode and actually put you ahead of some of the other guests that I had already recorded was because I now use your podcast episode as like a highlight in several of my welcome email series.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
like, and if you want to know what it's like to work with me, here's a podcast episode with Maddie Peschong where she talks about it. But the one thing about pushing your episode up so far was that I interviewed you like literally 2 weeks after I put it together. Yeah. So you hadn't even had any clients that had gone through your system. So now that there's been a little breathing room, I know that you've booked some amazing clients using your new workflows. Just tell me how the system is working for you.
Yeah, it's been awesome. I knew that I was like on the cusp of some, pretty significant growth the last time that we talked, but I also tend to have kind of slower summers on purpose. And then this summer was particularly just kind of slow. So it's been really fun now heading into fall. It's kind of like my people wake up in the fall and they're like ready to go, ready to book. And so it's been really fun to have this like awesome proposal and all these great workflows to use as I get busier. The thing that's so great about the proposal is how customizable it is for different clients. Like we kind of did it through the lens of like, okay, this is really great for like a personal brand session. But then we also created different variations that were just like slightly different for maybe like a headshot client or a commercial client or someone who wants multiple headshots. And so it's been so easy where in the past I was like opening up these Google Docs and customizing everything. I know.
Poor thing.
It was not great. And it just took me time. I mean, that was what it came down to. And so then I would drag my feet and then not get paid soon enough because I was dragging my feet on sending these stupid proposals that weren't that cute. Aww. And now it's just so much easier for me to like, if I get an inquiry from someone who wants, 10 corporate headshots, I can go back to a proposal that looks really pretty that I've recently sent and just like tweak that ever so slightly and send it off. And I had this awesome situation. I'm still kind of going back and forth with this client too. It's the thing with my commercial clients, more corporate clients, love them dearly, but like there tends to be a decent amount of dead space before they book because there's so many powers that be that have to like sign off on stuff. So I'm going back and forth with this client, but as soon as I sent the proposal to her, this was probably a week or 2 ago, she texted me because she's also a friend of mine. She texted me the next morning at like 7:30 and was like,
Don't you
Maddie,
those?
She's like, Maddie, we are blown away by this proposal. They have this creative director who works in like Scotland or something, so somewhere not here. And she was like, he could not believe it. It was so impressive. And so I told her, I'm like, oh, thank you. Like I invested in my proposals and it's been really cool to like see how well they're doing and the feedback that I'm getting. And she's like, well, we are just blown away. And I do think like, even though to an extent, I think there will always be some of that back and forth with those corporate clients, it's a lot less because we have like an FAQ section and the payment plan is super clear and the contract is like right there. So there's less that they have to ask me. They have to pass it around to the right people, but there's a lot less like actual back and forth because they have all the answers. And that's amazing.
I'm so happy to hear that. I love because, some of the pushback that I actually get when I make proposals for people is, well, no, Colie, I don't need FAQs on there. They're on my website.
No, you do. You need them.
But like, Do you know that people are reading your FAQs on your website? And also, guys, I want to say this because I do not copy the FAQs that you have on your website onto your proposal. That's not the purpose of the proposal. The proposal FAQs should specifically be the objections that you get related to making the purchase. So
Mhm.
if they want to say something about, reschedules or any of those kinds of things that are pertinent to getting them to say yes, those are the only FAQs that need to be on your proposal.
Yeah.
Like the other fluffy stuff that you had on your website to get them to actually inquire with you in the first place. Yeah, we don't need those repeated in your proposal. But definitely, like in Maddie's case, if it has to get passed around to a bunch of people, there was probably only one person on her consultation call. And so all of the other people that have to look at the proposal in order to approve it need that other information, which are things that she probably highlighted on the call. But again, not everyone might have been on the call in a commercial corporate type of situation. So love to hear it, Maddie.
Yeah, it's been great. And as I have sent out more of these proposals, I've gone back and updated the FAQ. So, like, my FAQ for personal brand sessions is one thing, and my FAQ for headshots is one thing. But if it's a corporate client who's booking 20 headshots, it's a totally different FAQ. And that has helped me a ton, just like answer their questions before they even have to ask them, which is great.
That's awesome. And I don't mean to put you on the spot because I hate it when people ask me about numbers because I feel compelled to actually go dig and like calculate, but you're not me. So maybe you won't feel so put in a corner. But like if you had to guess how many hours you are now saving with the
Oh,
custom, with the automated emails, the workflows, and sending the proposal and not having to go back and forth to answer those extra questions, like how much time are you saving per client?
oh God. Definitely hours. I don't know. It would have to be. I would bet on average, depending on the client, it's like 3 to 5 hours. Not only like no more back and forth, but like the proposals are so much quicker and easier to send
Mhm.
out. There's, I think, less follow up, like because they just kind of they have everything that they need, and so I don't have to be like, hey. Even the other day, one of my favorite things that you set up is the thing that sends out when they have filled out the proposal and signed the contract but not
And
paid
didn't
me.
pay you. Do
This
you
happens
know?
all the time.
So do you know, Maddie, that it legitimately took me 9 months of doing setups to add that email? Now, I will say, like, I had an email, but it wasn't the, hey, just so that you know, you did step
Hmm.
1, you did step 2, but you did not do step 3. If you really want to be a client and you want this booked on my calendar, you must pay me. And so, like, that particular email, I didn't have it in the sequence until like 9 months after I was doing these. And then I had to send one myself. And honestly, that's how most of the stuff gets
Yeah.
into my setups. I had to send one myself and I sent it with like a really funky GIF and I made a lot of jokes. And I'm like, yo, you didn't do this last step. So even though you think you're booked, like you're
You're
not
not.
booked. And then I was like, oh, most of my clients probably need this email too. So then I started putting it in there. And some clients will have me tone it down a little bit. Honestly, it's the people that work with the corporate people because
Yeah.
you just want it to be like, you've very professional and you've done step 1 and step 2. I just need to follow up on step 3. Like it sounds different, but like
Yep.
everybody has like a more personalized version of that. Oops, you're not done yet.
Hmm.
Please
I,
finish.
I love the wording of mine says something along the lines of like this is totally automated, so it doesn't reflect any conversations we might have had,
Yes.
which I super appreciate because I had just last week I had this client who was like, I knew she was gonna book, but she was just kind of like dragging her feet, and I think it probably was her like waiting to have the money to book or
Mhm.
something like that. And so I was being sensitive to that, but also like, we got to lock this in. Like, if you want to shoot before the end of the year, we got to go. And I loved that the follow up just kind of happened automatically and it took the emotion out of it. It was just
Mhm.
like, hey, you did do step 1 and 2, but you haven't done 3 yet. If we've talked about this already, it's totally fine, like whatever, but also you need to pay me. And she
Mhm.
paid me. I was like,
So
great, love
great.
it.
I love it when an automated email can help you avoid an awkward conversation.
Yep,
That
same.
is
It's
my
the
favorite.
best because I will avoid awkward conversations till the day I die. So,
That's a conversation we could have about those Enneagrams, right? But yeah, I love it when automated emails can help you avoid awkward
yeah,
conversations. That needs to
totally.
be a tagline somewhere on my sales page. I'm going to make a note.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, beyond the Dubsado setup from the last time. Like, what else is happening in your business that's new?
I've noticed this really interesting shift. And I know that, this is a topic that people maybe don't love to talk about, but I have definitely noticed that. So right now it's fall, we're recording fall of 2022. And I work with a lot of small business owners. Like that's my favorite type of session, is a personal brand session. So with someone like you, with someone like me. And I think a lot of small business owners are getting a little bit nervous about a recession.
Yes.
And so I have definitely noticed that in, like, typically by, I don't know, September, October, I'm booked through the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's just now starting to happen, and we're almost into November. So it's been a little bit, not even slower, because I'm still booked at a good capacity, but it's a different energy. Absolutely.
I will 100% agree with you, Maddie. And it's
Yeah.
funny, I can't believe you and I have not talked about this, but I
Yeah.
actually talked about this with someone yesterday. And she brought in a really interesting perspective. So again, talking about the recording date, this is before election day. Okay, guys, so keep this in mind.
Yes.
But yesterday, the person that I was having a conversation with said that she had recently heard a statistic where it talked about how slow entrepreneurship is in Q3 and Q4 in midterm election years. I thought that was rather
Interesting.
specific.
Wow,
And she was like,
very.
yeah, there's data on trends that show that entrepreneurs are booking less, they're spending less money right around elections and midterms. And I thought, well, why midterm elections? Like that's why not elections in general? But like, and she didn't have the answer to that, but I thought that that was absolutely fascinating. And while you and I have not had this conversation, I have been having this conversation in many places. And hopefully by the time this episode airs, we're going to be right on the heels of Q1. Everything will be better for all of us entrepreneurs. But I do think there is an incredible amount of buyer hesitancy right now.
I 100% agree.
Yes.
And I've had that, especially this summer. I had that conversation. I had a couple sessions this summer, and I would meet up with my client, be like, how's business? How's everything going? And they were always like very tentative. And then eventually they'd be like, it's slow. And every time I was like, everyone is slow.
Like, I feel like we need to talk about it more.
Yeah,
like
I agree.
Even yesterday, I was talking to someone different than gave me the statistic. And when she was commenting on how she didn't have anyone booked for the rest of the month, I'm like, no, that's not just you. That's everyone. And like, I feel like we need to be having more of a conversation about this. And I don't know if it's like a trickle down effect, like maybe you had a slower Q3, so you're not spending as much in Q4, or maybe you do have actual hesitancy about all of the economic things that are currently going on, but like it's slow for everyone. And I don't know if this is just our new normal or if it's going to pick back up in Q1 like it does. Because Maddie, one of the best things that I've done recently is I set up my Airtable automations. I mean, I had a sales hub where every single person who buys in my business, except the photography side, which is a whole different story, but everybody who buys for Dubsado gets put into this hub. And I now have like a sales goal table and I have an actual sales log. And so I can now like very quickly see how much I made Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4.
Yeah.
I made so much in Q1 versus the other ones. And it didn't really dawn on me until I actually looked at the numbers. So, and I mean, I haven't been doing Dubsado setups long enough to know if that's like something that I should expect. Like people are always interested in getting their Dubsado set up, getting new systems for the year, blah, blah, blah. And like for you, I'm sure that you notice trends. Like you said, you're usually slower in the summer because you want to be home for your kids. But like, what is your busy season, Maddie? Because like for family photographers, it's definitely fall, Q3, maybe going into Q4. But what is it for you? Are you pretty good year round?
It's pretty, I think that it could be pretty steady year round. I choose to have a slower summer. And so typically that means, what would that be? Q2 kind of
Q2
part of
going into Q3.
Going into Q3 is like very low for me. And I do that on purpose. And honestly, it works. I guess I don't know any other way, but it seems to work for my people too, because a lot of the time I'm working with moms and their summers are busy. And so they're not wanting to do sessions. Q4 and Q1 are like bananas. It's bananas. Yeah. Which I like, because that works really well with like my kids' school year. So it works really well. I do tend to take off like part of or a portion of December, but because of the way that I set up like payment plans or more passive items, I can do that and still make a good amount of money in December. December is usually one of my higher months. So yeah.
I have to tell you, oddly enough, for my photography, December has historically been my highest month.
Yeah.
For babies, for people wanting holiday sessions, because I don't stand outside and take pictures in a field. But like,
Right,
if
no.
I looked at my historical data, like I usually make like a banana amount of money in December in photography. And I'm not shooting as much as I am. I mean, that's part of the pandemic. I've recently had a few episodes where I was interviewing other photographers about their experience during the pandemic, but it definitely slowed down because I wasn't going into hospitals. And for a long time, I wasn't going into people's houses. And then when I started going into their houses, I was limiting myself to one person a week so that I made sure that I didn't spread COVID all over the place. So things definitely look different now. So I don't really have like I'm trying to figure out what my new normal is. But yeah,
I agree.
And honestly, what you said about Q2 and Q3 in the summer, like you're actually kind of lucky that the summer is like the last part of Q2 and the beginning of Q3.
Yes.
Because then the other 2 months inside of those, each of those quarters can help you balance out what you're actually making for your quarterly income.
Yep, totally. I've had that same thought. It ends up balancing out pretty well. But yeah, it's an interesting shift that's happening, and I appreciate the people who are talking about it, because I agree. I think we need to talk about it more. Like like I recorded a podcast episode recently. By this point it'll be out, but on my podcast I talked about how this year for me is a non-growth year from a financial perspective. And that was really hard for me to reconcile at first. And then the more that I thought about it, the more I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff that I got done this year that I would not have gotten done if
you were growing.
If I was growing from a financial perspective. And I feel so confident going into 2023, knowing that like I've got these proposals and I've got a really good group program, which we'll talk about later, that I like feel really good about the curriculum, and all that stuff wouldn't have happened if I was shooting 3 sessions a week, So it's weird to be as an Enneagram 3, as an achiever who's like, I remember last year my accountant or my financial planner asked me like, do you foresee your business growing year over year? And I was like, what kind of a question is that?
Yeah. Of course I
do. And then this year, ironically, it will not. And I'm actually so proud of all the other growth that I had this year. So, but anyway, to kind of loop back to your question, as I started noticing that shift, I think it's very easy to go to a place of, how can I discount my sessions? How can I do things for cheaper? How can I? And I totally
Lord,
did
do
that.
not let those words form in your mouth. Continue, Maddie.
Yep, exactly. And I was able to say like, no, like that's not what we do. What is another way to go about doing this? And I think that this is one of the things I love about brand photography. Like, yes, it's specific, but there's still a lot of variety within the umbrella of brand photography. And so I just started getting curious of like, okay, well, what industries tend to grow in a recession? Who tends to benefit in a recession? And I've been doing more of like the corporate and commercial headshots or lifestyle type photography. I've shot so many effing banks lately.
That last one you did, you killed it though, Maddie. I've been
loving it.
I want headshots like that.
Loving it. It also like kind of re-sparked my creativity, because in the past when I have done bank headshots, I've been like, okay, we'll do the typical bank headshot. And now, a combination of I've been doing this for a while and I've got really, really awesome clients who are ready to push the envelope a little bit. We're kind of scheming of like, okay, how can we do bank headshots, but like in a really fun way that stands out and that makes a statement? And so it's been so creatively fulfilling, and I'm making a lot of money. It's awesome.
I mean, the one thing that I will say that I thought you were going to say earlier, but then you didn't go there. One of the issues when you have corporate jobs, and I just want to let everyone know out there, because when I'm in some of the Facebook groups, they're always like, no, you make your rules. If you want to get paid before the session, then you just tell them that. And I'm like, yeah, that's not how corporate world works.
No,
so
it's not.
It's not just slow to book corporate jobs. It is also incredibly slow to get paid, depending on how many people your invoice has to go through for approval to get paid. Like the bigger the company, the longer you wait, which honestly doesn't make sense to us, because we're like, you have the money to pay it. But like the approval process in a corporate, world is, but when you get that paycheck though, when you get that paycheck, you're like, oh my gosh, I could go buy a car.
Yes.
I know.
It's awesome.
Last year I had a really big commercial job, and they had a new person working as my like in between, and it took so long to get paid. Like I want to say I didn't get my final balance for like 4 months.
Oh
It
my
was
God.
so long, Maddie. And then, I got the check and I was like, oh, that's so nice. What am I going to do with all this money? But, and it kind of like all the pain of waiting just kind of runs away when you see that invoice paid notification. But yeah,
Totally.
I mean, but that is a really good way to think about it. Like, who is not being hurt by, because I will say it's one of the conversations that I had with a lot of family photographers during the pandemic was everybody thought that the pandemic was causing like buyer hesitancy. And I was like, no, all my clients still have, like, all my clients might be working from home now, but like their financial situation is not any different. Like, if anything, they're saving money because they're not currently paying for childcare or whatever it was. So I was like, you really do have to think about who your clients are and not just assume that, if there's something that's happening in the economy, that it is directly affecting your clients. And so you going out and actually specifically looking for people who wouldn't suffer in a recession and trying to get more of those jobs is just absolutely brilliant. I mean, I know you're brilliant, but that's brilliant, Maddie.
It's been really fun, and I'm proud of myself because the first place that I went to was like, what discounts can I offer? And I don't want to do commercial clients because they're boring. Like headshots like that are boring. And so the fact, I think it does show a lot of growth, that the fact that I was able to say like, okay, but what if it doesn't have to be boring? Like, what if we can make it a Maddie Peschong session just for a different kind of client? And so that's what I've been doing. And it's just been so fun. And like I've had a couple emails lately from these like big, banks or whatever. And to be fair, they're still like medium-sized local banks, but they're bigger than a personal brand. And I get these emails back after I send galleries and they're like, oh my God, people are freaking out. They love their headshots. And I talk to so many people just in daily life who are like, I hate my corporate headshot. I hate the headshot that the bank hired me, whatever. And so to hear from people and hear that they feel like themselves in their photo and they feel like it does a good job of like showing their personality and like they're proud of it and they think they look good, like that makes me so happy. So it's been really fun to figure out like, okay, if we have to do this quote unquote boring thing, how can it not be boring?
It's so funny. So because you accepted my connect this morning. I just joined LinkedIn. Like I've never been on LinkedIn because to me, for a family photographer, there was never a need. Like no one is going to come hire me off of LinkedIn for family photography. That's not a thing. And if you want to argue with me, please come hit me in my DMs and Instagram because I would love to hear from you. But I finally joined LinkedIn, and what I'm thinking of is, as I hear you saying that your clients are so proud of their headshots, like a difference would be those people are probably updating their LinkedIn profiles with your picture versus before when they got that stale bank type of headshot. They're like, yeah, I don't want that on LinkedIn. That's no. They probably had a personal image instead of like the professional headshot that they are using on their corporate website.
Yep, totally. Yeah. You had talked about the photo that I posted of the
I'm going to put it in the show
that
notes.
I recently shot. Okay, perfect. I posted that on Instagram and I debated doing it because I was like, I don't know, like this is not my typical, I mean, it actually is my typical clientele, but it's not typically what I advertise because I love the personal brand sessions. And so my thought process is, whatever I post, I tend to book. So do I want to book more of this?
Good job,
and I was
Maddie.
like, fuck yeah, I do.
Yes.
Like that would be so fun to do more like Kardashian themed bank photo shoots. Are you kidding me?
Now,
all
day. I was going to say that, but I legitimately couldn't remember if you were the one that called it a Kardashian style image or if that was someone in your comments. But yes, you guys, if you should go to the show notes and look at this image. It was a really fantastic group corporate shot.
Thank you. Yeah. And I had somebody who was a really awesome personal brand client, but she is like her own business, but she also works for a business. And she commented and tagged a coworker and was like, we need a shot like this. And I'm like, that is why I posted it. I will do your Kardashian photo shoots.
I mean, I don't think that this is a good transition into your group program, but I don't really care. So Maddie. So one of the things that you've done towards working towards growing your business, but not financially growing your business, is you've been looking for these, brands, businesses that aren't going to suffer in the recession. The other thing that you did was you launched this new group program. So I want you to tell me what it is, who it's for, and kind of your thought process in launching this, because this is not your first avenue into coaching. So like, why this program?
Yeah, great question. So I've been coaching for a couple of years. I think I had done some events, but my first like mastermind group program kicked off January of 2020. So very interesting time.
That's a good time to be in a mastermind. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I didn't know what I was doing. And then suddenly I was coaching all these people through a pandemic. It was great. But I loved it. And yet I found like there were parts of it that were really difficult. I mean, obviously, but because I wasn't coaching a specific niche of industries, of people, it was creatives, just in general, creatives who want to grow their personal brand. And again, I loved it, but it was also really hard to come up with like topics and curriculum. And so it was very like Q&A based. Yeah. And as and also I was running a 6-month program right into the next 6-month program. So
no space.
That was and that was a really big reason as to my financial growth over those 2 years. But I was also, I wouldn't say burnt out, but I was on the cusp of being burnt out for sure. And so when I looked at this fall, I ran a small version of that program earlier this year. And then I took the summer off. And then looking at this fall, trying to figure out, okay, what's the program look like in the fall when I would typically run another 6-month program? I was like, I don't want to do this again. And I've learned to really listen to that gut instinct of like, this doesn't sound fun. This doesn't feel aligned. So something has to change. Because then I'm not showing up as my best self. And the thing that I have been kind of pushing down for the last couple of years is teaching specifically brand photographers, like teaching photographers who want to pivot into brand photography. And that shift really scared me because ironically, my Instagram audience, which is decently sized, is not primarily photographers, let alone brand photographers.
Really?
Yep. I've done some polls and just kind of like looked at the stats of my audience, and it's not actually a lot of photographers. There's photographers there, but that's not the primary audience. And so saying, not only am I only serving photographers, I'm only serving this very specific niche of photographers. Yeah, exactly. The face you just made was how I felt.
I'm like, wow. I really wouldn't have assumed that. I'm going to let you finish, but I actually have a follow-up question now.
Yes.
Who's your audience for your podcast?
So someone just asked me that the other day, and I want to get more information on this. I don't have a ton of stats around it. I do think in general, it tends to be creatives, not necessarily just photographers. I'm trying to kind of skew it a bit or grow it in that direction, but I would say at this point, it's more creatives.
Okay. Continue when you're talking about Glee brand, girl.
Yeah. So I had just kind of been like pushing this down. I spoke at a conference a couple of years ago, and the talk that I gave, I remember walking off not the stage, but the stage, whatever, and being like, that's a course. Like that talk that I just gave is a course. And a client of mine was there in the audience, and she was like, yes, 100%, that is a course. And so it had been in my head for the past couple of years. And I was just like, no, I can't do that. Like, that's not going to work. And it's so ironic because I had the same thoughts when I was niching into brand photography. It was like, all the thoughts you have when you narrow your focus.
You niche, yes.
When you niche, yes. And I had to continually remind myself every time I niche, my business grows, which is true. But it's easy to not believe that too.
Sometimes we need to see the data.
We need to see the data. Yep. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of got to the point where I was like, oh, fuck it. Let's just try. This sounds really fun. I think I could have a really fun time doing this. And I know historically in my business, when I follow the fun, like that's what's best for me. It's what's best for my people. And so that's what I did. And it was the most successful launch I've ever had. It's the largest program that I've ever had. I had kind of like a pie in the sky goal of 20 people, which felt really big to me. And I think I ended up at like 14 or 14.
Nice.
And so I was thrilled with that because all of my programs in the past had been like 10 at the most. And this was, more than that. So I am so thrilled. I was so thrilled with the amount of people who said like, yes, I'm interested, but even more so the conversations that we're having in the group and just how it feels very much like zone of genius for me. It's been so fun. Like I look forward to the calls and I feel confident answering the questions and I can relate so much more to the women. It's just been great.
No, that is amazing. And it's funny that you were like, I walked off the stage and that's a course, because when people ask me, well, how did you get started in Dubsado setups? It wasn't a talk for me, or I guess it was a podcast episode. Like the
yeah.
first time that I was on This Can't Be That Hard, Anami had me on there to talk about Dubsado, CRMs in general. And like I got off and I remember telling her, yeah, I'm gonna make a course. This is gonna be a
Yeah.
course. And then like in September, I took Amy Porterfield's DCA. And then by
Mm.
November, I had launched, a pre-sale or whatever. So
Yeah.
I totally get taking that gut feeling, Maddie, and going with it, because the worst that can happen is that you fail. And the
Right.
people are scared to fail. I'm never scared to fail, because you learn something every time you do.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come back and you modify it, or you pivot it, or you do something to it, or you go with something completely different, it's usually another breakthrough or another growth spurt right around the corner. So no, that's amazing. And 14, 15, your first time is great.
Yeah.
Because think about
I'm
it.
thrilled.
You're going to get all the testimonials from these people. It's going to be amazing. And the second time that you run it, you're going to be known for this, working with brand photographers now. And so your
Yes.
second launch should be bigger, better, and easier. So
Yeah.
that'll be
Yeah.
amazing.
I'm excited. The interesting thing that happened to me, this was interesting. It's actually not. It's when I think about it, I'm like, this is like duh. But when I was in the launch, I noticed that my audience was growing quite a
Yes.
bit with brand photographers.
Yes.
Like every time I would get a follow, it was a brand photographer. And so I was originally going to run Rebrand, which is the name of the program, for different types of people. So run it for brand photographers and run it for creatives and whatever. And Rebrand is a process, so it's something that I could take anyone through, and on a one-on-one basis, I will still do that. But I think the program is going to be for brand photographers for the foreseeable future, because that part of my audience is growing. So the people are becoming ready for it, which is really exciting.
Yeah, those people that are joining, those are the people that are going to buy in your second launch. Tortoise and the Hare, I can't remember who it is. It might be Mariah Cause. Someone gives a talk about buyers and the way that people buy. And some people are tortoise. No, that doesn't seem like that's the right analogy, but whatever. Some people buy immediately and other people have to wait and see what happens.
Totally.
And so all those people who are joining your list that didn't buy the first time, they're just waiting to see. They don't want to be your guinea pigs. They want to make sure that when they pay you money, that someone else has done it and someone else thought it was amazing, and then they will give you all of the money. So I totally think that's what's going to happen for you.
Yeah. I'm excited. So it's been really fun.
Yeah. So, and it's also very interesting that you say, because when I created my course, the CRM Blueprint, everybody's like, I don't understand why it doesn't say Dubsado in it. And I'm like, well, because when I created it, I didn't intend for it to be a Dubsado only course. I was going to create this course for Dubsado users, and I was then going to see who else was in my audience and basically build a version for Honeybook, build a version for 17 Hats. And somewhere along the way, I was like, fuck it, I'm not doing any of that. That's going to require too much brain capacity. I'm getting older. I don't have that anymore. Let me stick to what I know. So basically, in 2021, I went all in on Dubsado. I had the course, I had the VIP days. And while I intended to move on, or at least expand from that initial offering, I haven't done it, good or bad. There are some bad things, but I haven't done it. But it's made the work that I do easier. It's made my messaging easier, because it's I can speak specifically to the things that Dubsado does. Like, you keep on talking about these proposals. Dubsado is the only one that has proposals like that.
Yep.
So I don't have to shy away from being like, no, these fucking proposals are awesome and everybody needs one. Like, I don't have to shy away from saying that. But if I was teaching a course that included Honeybook or 17 Hats, I couldn't really place the emphasis that it needs on that particular item, because then I would be worried about some people feeling left out versus others. So, I mean, that was a good decision with me. I think it's going to be a great decision with you, Maddie.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's cool to think about, instead of having to completely redo my marketing or shift my marketing to attract a different audience, instead I can spend that time making the program that much better, or collecting testimonials, or doing stuff that really grows something, as opposed to just kind of spreading myself thin, which honestly is what I've been doing. So it's a good shift.
And I just want to give you a shout out. I mentioned this before we started recording, but I have now worked with 2 of your people, and they're both awesome. Like, I helped Natalie with her workflows in Dubsado, and I hired Amanda for a brand shoot recently. I mean, both of them were amazing. And the funny thing was, when I was on the phone with Natalie or in person with Amanda, I could totally tell that both of them had learned with you. I mean, I could tell in Natalie's Dubsado account because there were similarities to yours. But Amanda, I was like, oh my God, that was you on the proposal that I built for her. Like, do you know it took me that long to realize that it was
Oh
her
my
and
God,
Ben?
funny.
Yes, it took me that long to realize. I just kept on staring at Ben and I'm like, well, I know I've seen you on Instagram, but like, that's
Oh
not
my
what I'm
God.
thinking of right now. And I'm like, oh, you're on Maddie's proposal. Okay. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, it has allowed me to meet the best people who like I share so many similarities with because we've walked such a similar path. Like so many of the issues that come up in rebrand, I'm like I get it. I have literally been there. Like I get it. And so that just makes it so much more fun and easy to teach because I'm like I've walked this. I've helped clients walk this. We can do it with you too.
Mm-hmm. All right, Maddie. Last question I'm going to ask you. And you know, I normally ask the fuck up question, but guys, I'm not asking her the fuck up question because she answered it in episode 3. So if you want to know her answer to that, go listen to episode 3. It was a great episode. Actually, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. What was your favorite thing that you bought for your business this year? And not me, like pick something else.
That's what it was going to be.
I know, but like pick something else.
Ooh, my favorite thing that I bought for my business this year. That's a good question. Honestly, I think most of the time the best investment or the best thing that I buy for my business each year is investing in education. Like that I had a really big breakthrough this year that led to rebrand and led to this like format of how I'm going to coach people going forward. And it was something that I had been trying to create for the past, I don't know, 5 years. And it needed to take that long, I think. Like, you know, you have to kind of work through things and refine and all of that. That breakthrough, I don't know if that would have happened I don't think it would have happened without the help of my coach. I really don't. Most of the time I'm able to say like, oh, it would have happened, but it would have taken longer. This specifically, like I give her a lot of credit for like pulling things out of me that I wasn't doing. I also have invested a lot more in my mental health this year, and that has paid off in my business.
Nice.
Like a lot of therapy and a lot of coaching, and it's paid off in every part of my life. It's made me a better business owner, but I think it's also made me a better human, and that makes me a better business owner. So yeah.
But so Maddie, like, I don't know if you're hearing about the same things that I'm hearing, but like even this morning or yesterday, there was a podcast episode where someone was talking about sleazy marketing in coaching industry. And then my business coach was actually talking about it from a different angle the week before. And so one of the things that I laugh about is, you know, we're always like, no, if you invest in coaching, it's good for your business. And people are like, yeah, but you're saying that because you want me to hire you as a coach. No, I don't care who you hire as a coach.
No.
I'm telling you that the biggest growth that you can have in your business is where you pay someone that is in a further place than you are now to get their eyes on your business and help you improve it. And it doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be Maddie. Of course, I want you to vet your coach. But in general, if you are getting a coach that, you know, knows what they're doing, has a great teaching style, has a great mentoring style, you are going to grow leaps and bounds by making that investment. And that actually brings us to the final question that I'm going to ask you, which was my original final question. Whatever, Maddie. What education in person opportunities are you going to in 2023? Because I know I'm going to see you at Reset. Am I going to see you anywhere else?
So I'm still kind of deciding. I will for sure be at Reset and I'll be speaking at Reset. One of the things that I've talked to you about this, one of the things that I want to do more of in 2023 is apply to speak at more places. And so I think a lot of those open up in January. So we'll kind of see after that what happens. But I would love to speak at more conferences and I would love to attend more conferences because I have made so many amazing relationships with you, with Sabrina, with, you know, with seeing people in person and meeting people who are kind of in similar business stages to me. So I have a saved folder on my Instagram, and anytime one of my friends says, I'm speaking at this conference, I save it. And I'm like, okay, we're going to go through all of these and figure out where we're going because I want to meet more people. It works really well. It works well.
So I'm going to say, I am not speaking, but I am attending the Creative Educators Conference in Dallas in January. So Maddie, if you want to go, I'm going to be there. We'll talk about it when we stop recording.
Okay,
the second one that I'm going to in February is Photo Native, and that's in Palm Springs. It is for photographers. So Maddie, I really need you to write this one down. I am speaking. I do think that you would enjoy that conference. I think that there
I've
would be a
heard of
lot
that
of,
one.
yeah. Well, it's been gone for a few years. So the last one that they had was like literally 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. Now
Oh, wow.
that was always intended to be the last one. So I don't want to say that the pandemic like closed it down, because that was going to be the last one. And now it has been taken over by Allison Hatch. And so it's coming back, you know, the same brand, the same conference, but it is run by someone different now.
Got it.
And then
Okay.
the third one that I'm attending in March, in addition to Reset, is the Family Narrative Family Reunion. And so,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'm speaking at that one. I'm mentoring. I don't quite know what the correct label is for that one, but I am so looking forward to like going and seeing people and giving people hugs. And like for the ones in Palm Springs, I'm the one that's going to be in the bathing suit in the unicorn floaty with a drink, with a cocktail in my
Amazing.
hand.
Yes.
So if you're
I think I need to
unclear,
go.
I mean, Maddie, you should definitely come to Photo Native. I'm telling you, you should. But yeah, and actually, I always like to hear where you're speaking. So after you make those applications, let me know so I can know what
I
other
will.
conferences to attend.
I will.
Well, guys, that's it for this episode. Thank you for being on here, Maddie. You know, it's always a joy to have you on. And so technically this won't be every quarter, but like I think having you on the podcast twice a year is probably I think that's a good
that
fit.
idea.
Yeah. I mean, I like talking to certain people over and over again. And every time I chat with you, Maddie, you have such amazing and interesting insights for everybody who wants to listen.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.